You're listening to the Product Podcast from Product School, featuring the best product leaders from Silicon Valley and beyond. If you're an aspiring product manager looking for your first PM role, or an experienced PM looking to level up your skills and advance your career, visit productschool.com to learn about our certificate courses and how we'll get you there. Jitu Patel, Cisco's SVP and General Manager, maintains the idea that product is at the core of everything that we do. It affects each and every department, whether that be sales, marketing, or design. That's why it's so important to create a common language across the board, so we product managers can show everyone the amazing things we have built. We also know that it's critical for the whole company to have the chance to come together, regardless of title, to make sure that the best ideas are the ones making it into our product. Building a product is like sculpting a piece of art. Keep listening to learn how to turn your next one into a masterpiece. This episode is brought to you by ThoughtSpot, the modern analytics cloud company building a more fact-driven world with consumer-grade search and AI-driven analytics. With ThoughtSpot everywhere, you can embed a highly interactive analytics experience into your data app and take your user adoption to the next level. Learn more and try ThoughtSpot for free today by visiting thoughtspot.com/everywhere.
Hey everyone, my name is Carlos. I am the founder and CEO of Product School, and today I'm here with Jitu Patel, who's the SVP and General Manager at Cisco for the Security and Collaboration Business Unit. Hey Jitu.
Carlos, nice to be with you here again. So
yes,
how are you?
We had you on the show many years ago when you were the Chief Product Officer at Box.
Yeah. Time flies. I didn't realize it was 3 or 4 years, so that's a long time ago. So great to be back again. I know that you folks are doing some great work, so congratulations again on all the success.
Thank you. You too. So let's dive in. Let's talk more about your personal journey. So I know you've been an executive in product for a long time at companies like EMC, Box, and now Cisco. But how did you break into product?
You know, the way that I think about this, at least, is the origination of value in a company starts from product, because it is something that you build that you're going to eventually give to a customer. The customers want to purchase. So the origination of the value is in the product side. So it's so central to every part of the business, and that's why I decided to go into product, because it made a lot of sense to say, what you build is actually of the most importance and the most amount of value, because once you actually have a great product, you can take it to market, you can have scale distribution. So it's got the most amount of ripple effects and the most amount of leveraged investment, because every single decision that you make will in fact impact not just the engineering team that you're working with, but it'll impact the design team, but it'll also impact sales and marketing and customer success and billing and accounting and finance, and all those parts get impacted based on the decisions that you end up making. So it's a great business to be in, and I ended up getting into product just by luck. I moved to Silicon Valley, and I always was fascinated with product. And when I was at EMC, we made an acquisition of a company, and they asked me to run the business. And it was a small company, and we were all about just building a great product that people loved. And that's how I got started, and haven't left since. I think I'll always be a product guy. No matter what I do, I'll be a product person,
I agree. And I'm going to use that snippet for some executives I talk with, because like what you said about product adding so much value, being at the core of everything, it's relatively, obviously it's been around for a while, but now it's becoming more mainstream. So I wonder, when did you realize that, and like how many other people think that way back in the day?
Yeah, it is actually a challenge with this vocation, in the sense that there's a very formal school that you go to for design, and there's a very formal school you go to for engineering, and there's kinds of people that will be on different parts of the business that you might have in finance or accounting. But for product, it's a very vague kind of, every company defines product slightly differently. And that's actually part of the challenge, which is why companies like yours make so much sense, in the fact that, and then Chris Cox had given me this thing that said, there's very few product people that are great product people. So most of the times, the companies that are doing great on the product side actually build out a skill to train product people within the company itself. Because if you don't, then you can't just find people from outside, because it's every company defines it slightly differently, and you have to have your core set of values on product and core set of principles that really make sense. And so, the way I think about it is it is unique in the sense that there's no playbook that can be portable across the board, but then there's also so many things that can be codified that, conversations like these really help the community as a large learn from each other. And so I think that's a pretty important kind of dimension of it.
So I'm sure there are folks listening that work at large organizations and are thinking, oh my God, I wish my manager or my manager's manager thought this way. So I want to ask you, now joining a company like Cisco, for example, where I'm sure that even though, of course, it's a product culture, there's so many different business units that they might be speaking slightly different languages. How did you go about creating a common language across the board?
The common language in my mind is showing off to people you build, because eventually companies build products and you got to show people what you've built. And so one of the things I did when I first came to Cisco was the one meeting that I don't reschedule out of my week is a design review meeting. And the design review meeting was with a product manager, a designer, and an engineering leader. And it's not management. I'm not talking to VPs. I'm not talking to directors. I'm talking to the individual people that are building the product. And we just go through, we tell people explicitly in the meeting, leave your titles out in the room, outside of the room. I don't really care what anyone's title is. You shouldn't care what my title is. And we're just going to make sure that the best idea wins and makes it in the product, so that people that we're building the product for love the product, so that they can talk about it to their friends and family. And when they do, that's the most scalable marketing engine you can ever build, is word of mouth. And so what we did was we started with that. And then what we did was, my boss is the CEO at Cisco, and his leadership team is all the executives at Cisco. And so every meeting at Cisco now, we start with a demo. And individual contributors from a 70,000 person company come in and they demo their product. And they demo it to all of the executives at Cisco. And it's a great moment for them to get recognized. And it's also a great moment for everyone at Cisco to know that we are a product-centric culture. We're building amazing products, and that's the most important thing we can do, is build great products that people love. And so we started doing that first with me, then with Chuck's staff, and now we're doing it with all hands meetings. So you have a 70,000 person all hands meeting. We start showing demos in that meeting. It's a lot of fun,
I want to join. That sounds amazing.
You should come join. We are hiring very aggressively.
I want to join as a spectator. I have enough going on. But I want to double click on what you said about those design reviews, because I guess even within your business unit, there might be so many different products. So does that mean that you have different design reviews as well?
I do. I have two, one for the collaboration business unit, one for the security business unit. And so I do 2 design reviews a week, and we go through each one of them. Actually, we do it every other week. And so one week and then the other week, and we kind of alternate. And then some days we'll actually do it, every week. But when the design team and the product team get together and they just share with us the problem that they're solving and how we're creating asymmetry in the market by building and designing a product that is the way that they've designed it. And then we actually are very critical. It's kind of like, sculpting a piece of art. Why did we make the decisions we made? What are the things that we need to think about? Go back to the drawing board, because this doesn't seem like it's right for the user. It's not simple enough. And it goes from the smallest of things. What does the sign-up flow look like in WebEx, to the biggest of capabilities? Like, we're going to go out and create a whole new category of a product like contact center. And what should that look like? All of those pieces and everything in the middle, we actually look at.
So we've had different product leaders on the show, and especially in a small to mid-sized organization, the CEO is still really involved in some of those meetings and decisions. And maybe the product team is, let's say, up to 50 people. So it's still kind of manageable. People know each other's names, and at least they know what's going on. But at your scale right now, you mentioned 75,000 people. So how do you kind of, as an executive, how do you keep track of all the different initiatives that are happening?
We do a fair amount of kind of like every week there's a strategic program sync. In fact, I just got out of one today, an hour ago, where we go through every single major priority that we have, and then we actually review that on a weekly basis. And that's pretty important to have the operational rigor in place, because if you don't have the operational rigor, what ends up happening is you just don't get a rhythm that gets going. So what's the active user count look like? How are we doing on sales? What are we doing in different kind of bug counts? What are we doing from from new releases that are coming out? Are we on time on those releases? Are we doing as we thought we were going to do in the releases that we did ship? All of those pieces are pretty important. And so we need to, because product management is a very holistic kind of function where it has to interface with engineering, but also has to interface with design, it has to interface with sales, with marketing, with back office systems. And so you just need to have an entirety of a 360-degree perspective, because something as simple as, hey, we don't have the right, enablement in a back office system could be what kills a product. Like you might have the best product, and if you don't have the right systems in place for going out and making sure that the salesperson can go out and quote it properly, then you might actually end up not having a successful product. So like it has to be a very broad view that's looked at, and you have to make sure that there's a rhythm in place in the business. So that's one thing that we do, is just an overall operating system. The second thing that we're building out right now, and we had built this at Box really well, was what are the core set of product principles that you want to align with, that every individual in the company understands deeply and internalizes? Because once you have those product principles, then you don't have to centralize decision-making. The decision-making can be federated, right? Because when you have a large team of people, everyone is making decisions every day. And you want to make sure that they're making it with the same set of baseline assumptions about the business that everyone is thinking from. So we, at Box, the way that we had done it was we had a set of product principles. And the important part about the product principle is not just what the product principle is, but what is the trade-off that you're making that the product principle is not. So one of the principles we had, I'll give you an example of, and we're building these out right now at Cisco, but one of the things that I'll give you an example of that we had done at Box was, build horizontal software for the masses. That means that, multi-billion-dollar companies can be built with vertical software that's specialized for particular industries. That was just not what Box did. And so what we did was, when we said build horizontal software for the masses as the principle, we would add a line at the bottom that we would strike through, which is versus building vertical software for specialized industries. And we showed the juxtaposition and the compare, so you knew that this is what you stood for and this is what you didn't. Even though what you didn't stand for could have been a legitimate trade-off that you made at the time, but you've made that trade-off. And so any new person coming in, like if they were not aligned with those principles, then they shouldn't join the team, because you're just going to have a lot of constant kind of debate about things which you're going to keep relitigating over and over again. And so I think that's a pretty important dimension that we are embarking on right now as well at Cisco, because doing that at scale with, I have about 15,000 people in my org. That's a pretty large thing to do. And so we have to make sure that those principles are pretty clearly defined.
And I like that clarification about what you are and what you are not.
What you are not. Yeah.
Now you mentioned like future and creating something that works at scale. So how do you balance, let's say, maintenance of certain applications, products that work today with quote unquote like moonshots that you think it's not clear if they're going to work or not, but if they do, they have, they're going to make a huge impact?
Yeah. So the way that we do it is there's different products at different stages of maturity. And the one thing that we instill in everyone is speed is of the essence. You have to make sure that you're moving fast. But what you can't trade off with speed is quality. So quality is just as important, if not more important. And so speed and quality have to be, kind of at the core of what you end up doing. And so when you think about speed, I'm talking about speed and innovation velocity, right? At scale, it's pretty important that different stages of products at different stages of the life cycle are thought about differently. So for example, I fundamentally believe that you have to keep chipping away at the product and keep iterating little by little, little by little, little by little. Over time, it compounds. So just to give you an example, WebEx added 400 capabilities since September. Between September and now, we've added 400 capabilities, right? That is an enormous amount of engineering effort that was put into just making WebEx better and better and better and better and better. So many things were things that you might say, oh, what are the changes you've made? Well, we worked really hard on reducing CPU utilization for the product. No one sees that from a naked eye perspective, but it actually massively enhances quality of video and audio. But then we also added massive moonshot ideas that created new categories of products. And we did a whole lot with capabilities, and I wish I could demo. We are currently on this live streaming application that you have. But if you were using WebEx, if I did something like this, it would automatically detect my body language and show that I'm saying I'm doing a thumbs up. And so those kind of AI capabilities got added to the product as well. So what we do is we will have the theory is get small 2 pizza teams in place that actually have a local mission, that are in charge of a particular kind of area, and they have to be tied to the global mission. But then you make sure that we keep iterating. And then you have to make sure at the highest level that you're creating asymmetry in the market. So don't go out and try to chase competition. Do something that they have not done so that you create asymmetry in the market. Because as a product manager, one of the biggest traps you can fall into is getting so obsessed with your competitors that all you do is do what they've done. The world doesn't need a copycat. The world needs someone with original thinking. And so you have to, by the way, there's some people that are very good fast follow business models. You know, like some of the companies that have been very successful have said, I'm going to build a product that's good enough. Why? Because I have a monopoly. And so I'm just going to build a product that's good enough and I'll be able to be fine. That's not us. So we have to build enough asymmetry, and we have to think about problems discontinuously rather than thinking about them as just go out and copy what someone else had. You can't win at someone else's game. You have to create your own set of rules to win.
And I love what you said about the pizza team. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that, please?
Yeah, the 2 pizza team is not my idea. That came from Amazon, which is essentially, don't ever build teams of people that are solving a problem that cannot be fed with 2 pizzas. And so it's basically an 8 to 12 person size team at the most. And don't try to have 50 people in a team, or try to minimize the number of teams where you have that many people, because what ends up happening is when you have too many people in a team, all you're focused on is alignment. You're not focused on innovation. And what you need to have is few people that are just getting the work done and constantly innovating, rather than constantly spending the time aligning with everyone. Because alignment doesn't create value in and of itself. Innovation does. Alignment is a necessary component, but the more you reduce the overhead on alignment, the more you can redirect that overhead into energy, into innovation. And so I fundamentally believe that when you scale as a business, you have many, many, many small teams, but don't start having big teams. Big teams kill companies, right? And so make sure that you have many, many small teams.
And it's great that you are saying that coming from such a large organization. You mentioned your business unit is 15,000. So how do you create those pizza teams?
We create Scrum teams based on problems that need to be solved. There is someone that is focused on media quality and for video, and there's someone that's focused on media quality for audio, and those people are focused on media quality for audio are only focused on that. There's someone who's focused on AI for gesture recognition, and that's what they're doing. And so you'll actually build these teams based on projects that we have, and then you're constantly improving and iterating on that thing. And they're obsessed with not just building the product capability and sending it out, but with getting the usage high. Because once you get the usage, it does make a big difference. And I think that's a pretty important kind of dimension to keep in mind as you're going through it.
This episode is brought to you by ThoughtSpot, the modern analytics cloud company building a more fact-driven world with consumer-grade search and AI-driven analytics. Build stickier product experiences by embedding ThoughtSpot Everywhere's interactive analytics interface directly into your data app or product. No more delayed release cycles or incremental UX improvements. ThoughtSpot Everywhere's developer-friendly platform replaces static dashboards with an interactive data experience in minutes. allowing users to intuitively dig into their data and trigger actions in their favorite business apps. Learn more and try ThoughtSpot for free today by visiting thoughtspot.com/everywhere.
So G2, you mentioned your team is hiring, and I want to learn more about your philosophy around hiring PMs. Let's start with like the entry to mid-level PMs.
So I have a higher order philosophy in who I hire, which is, I hire people that are hungry and people that are curious above all else. I don't really care as much if you're technical or not technical. Like, you have to be relatively intelligent. You have to be, of course, be with high integrity. Those are all important things. But what you can't teach is hunger. You can't teach someone hunger. They're either hungry or they're not hungry. And if they're not hungry, there's nothing you can do to make them hungry. They're just not hungry. So find people that are hungry. They have a fire in the belly to win, and find people that are curious. They have to constantly be able to ask the question, why is it this way? And be able to challenge the status quo and not be afraid to challenge it. Those are the kind of people that do best, right? And so those are the things that we try to do, is hire people and search for people that are hungry and curious. And then the other thing I think for is discontinuous thinkers that have a clear point of view. I don't care if your point of view is wrong some of the time, but you have to be able to make sure that you have a process of getting to a clear point of view, and you're a clear communicator. Because in product management specifically, if you don't know how to communicate well, you're not going to be able to motivate the engineers. You're not going to be able to work with the designers. You're not going to be able to work with product marketing. You're not going to be able to work with sales. You're not going to be able to work with the rest of the functions in the business and with the customer. And so you have to make sure that you're extremely thoughtful in your ability to communicate crisply, clearly, without a whole lot of noise. Like, you have to be able to break it down to the core first principles and say, this is the essence of what I'm trying to solve for. And if you can't do that, then chances are that you need a little bit more coaching and development. And those things are what I look for. And in interview cycles, this was a great thing that I learned from, I think Chamath had talked about this once. And then I think one of his key proteges that is now at Facebook that runs all of analytics also talked about this, which is, ask someone what they know really well in life about anything, and tell them to teach you one thing that you might not know. It's a really good kind of question to ask. And, if they can't teach you something in an area that they know really well, but they've thought about it deeply, then you know that they are only surface level thinkers. And in product, what's important is you have to go 3 levels deep. You can't just talk at the surface level. You have to go to the first level, and the second level, and the third level, and you have to be able to make sure that you've gone through that thinking. And so those are the things I at least look for in product. One of my other mentors had a great thing. He said, G2, always look for people who have passion, which is the same as hunger, because you can't teach passion. Make sure that they're intelligent, which is obvious. Make sure they've got high integrity, because it's one thing if you hire a dumb person that has low integrity. It's very dangerous to hire a smart person with low integrity. So make sure that they have high integrity. And last one, make sure they can get shit done. They have to be able to execute. They have to be able to ship. They have to be able to make sure that they can actually not just talk about something, but actually get stuff done. So if you're not thinking in, 90-day increments on things that you can deliver to the market, you're probably not as action oriented. So think about that as you're going through it. Those are the things we look for, at least.
I'm glad you brought this up. I love what you said about the hunger is not something you can teach, because we got these misconceptions in the past. People saying, well, do I need to be a software engineer? Do I need an MBA in order to build something? And it's like, if you want to build something, just go and build. I think there's only so much that you can just learn by reading a book, and there's also like a combination. But I don't want anybody to stop from pursuing things, because it's not really rocket science. Like, there are certain things that you can figure.
I agree with you completely. By the way, I'm not a software engineer, and I seem to have done okay, and I think you just have to make sure that, by the way, that doesn't mean that I'm marginalizing software engineering skills. What I'm saying is anything can be learned and taught, because we have we have this amazing resource called the internet. And so you can just learn about it on the internet. You can find the product podcast and you can listen to people that have actually learned it and tried it before, so you can learn from their mistakes. And most people are more than happy to share their learnings with other people in different forums. And so you should take advantage of that and learn from those learnings. And there's so much available in the market to be able to do that. And by the way, the thing that's really important that you learn is how to pick the right problem to solve as a product manager. Picking the right problem is 90% of the game, because the harder the problem that you pick to solve, what I've found, and this is something that Sam Altman said very eloquently, the probability of success is much higher the harder the problem it is to solve, which is very counterintuitive. Usually people would think like, okay, I'm going to pick the easy problems because the probability of success is going to be higher for those easy problems for succeeding. No, in fact, what happens is the harder problems have a higher probability of success of succeeding in the market. Why? Because the hard problems attract the best people. And when the best people get attracted to solve really hard problems, that's when you know that you've actually got magic happening. And so the thing that you really want to learn from people is how do you solve great problems that you want to pick to solve.
Hi, I'm Roland. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer here at Product School, and I'm jumping into your podcast feed to invite you to participate in our annual awards that honor the world's best digital products for product managers. It's called the Proddies. You can think of it as the Grammys for the product management community. So just head over to proddies.com, that's PRODDYS.com, to cast your vote and decide the future of your favorite tool. Thanks in advance.
So Jitu, what are you curious about learning these days, and how do you make time for it?
You know, I think the dimension of how do you get machinery to operate at scale while still not losing the individual touch, I think is a constant quest to learn. You can't have any individual feel like they're just a cog in the wheel, because everyone's doing something special. But you have to have some systems in place, and you have to have some systems thinking, so that all of that good work that people are doing creatively comes together into a fine solution. And that's that gets harder and harder the more you scale. You know, and maintaining velocity of innovation at scale is probably the thing that I'm most proud of in my career, to have been a small part of teams that have done that. In fact, if I look at the WebEx team today, I would say that, you know, and even on the security side, some of the things that we're doing, I can't think of, like, you know, more faster execution teams. And these are the largest teams that I've been part of, but they're operating faster than any other team I've ever been part of. It's just amazing to see the level of speed compounding. And I think the ability to create a system that does that and work with people that can actually be identified so you can do that is a constant learning process, you know.
One of the things I love the most about product is that we get to create our future internally and externally. Yeah. And now you mentioned AI and velocity. So how do you think that some of those variables are going to impact the future of product management for people who are, okay, I'm going to start a product manager?
Well, AI is a very interesting kind of domain, because the model for delivering products with AI capability is slightly different. It is a non-deterministic model versus a non-AI related capabilities. It's a deterministic model. What do I mean by that? Well, let's take a simple thing, like you take the product that we're in right now, and we need to add a feature or two, which is non-AI related. You know, I need to make sure that I have a feature for doing a threaded reply. That is a specific problem that work. It's solved as a problem. It's just a very specific problem that has to get solved. Like, you have to have a certain amount of work, and you can have a time period, and you can say, in this time period, I'm going to be able to get this done. Now let's think about AI. In AI, you're training a machine learning model, and you're saying, I'm going to keep training it, keep training it, keep training it to see how I get on the other side. And once the result gets to be acceptable, if it ever gets to be acceptable, at that point in time, I'm going to take that product to market. But I'm going to constantly keep making sure that there's a model that's keeping on learning. That is a non-deterministic model for shipping product versus a very deterministic model for shipping product. And so there are things which are very different in an AI-based PM model, because you sometimes don't know if what you're building is going to be valuable to that degree. Like, one of the things we're doing right now is we're building a product for People Insights. And what is People Insights? People Insights is, I would be able to tell you as either an individual person, a team, or an organization, based on your insights on how you're doing. So for example, Carlos, you've actually been in 17 meetings in the past 2 days, but you've been 5 minutes late to 5 minutes or more late to more than 14 of those meetings. So you might want to think about that a little bit. Having that insight be a valuable insight, making sure that that data is actually valuable and that we can actually, we can provide that data is very important. How do you do that? Well, that's a very deterministic kind of model. But when you now start thinking about artificial intelligence related stuff, I'm doing gesture recognition, I'm doing noise removal. How do I take out the sound of a dog barking in the background? Well, the dog barking in the background the model has to keep working on it until you've identified the dog and separated from human speech. And there are different kinds of dogs, and those, there's some dogs who are going to have a higher pitch and some dogs are going to have a lower pitch. And how do you make sure that those happen? That model doesn't have predictability on when it's going to ship. You're going to keep training the model, and then one day you know that that's working, and that's when you've actually done it. So I think there's a nuance to AI-based product development, which is a non-deterministic, kind of cycle for product development rather than a deterministic cycle that you have to keep in mind as you're going through it.
And I just want to give some peace of mind to some of the PMs here thinking, oh my God, our robots are going to replace us. And like, no, PMs are building the machine. So I don't think we're going anywhere.
I wish we could have just said, in my life, it would be great if I could say, you know what, I can hire all the product managers that are great in the world, and I would still have room for thousands of robots with all the ideas that we have. The reality is I just don't think there's a human judgment element to building product. And that requires instinct, and that requires judgment. And not everything is data-driven in life. And I want the product managers to understand this. Like, yes, you have to have some data-driven pieces, but you will always have incomplete data. You have to make decisions based on incomplete data, and that's the art component of this job, not the science component. Yes, you have to have data. You should go out and then, whenever you can get data, get the data to make a decision. Chances are in life, and the higher up you go, there's going to be more and more places where you're not going to have all the data. You're going to have incomplete data, but you have to make a call, and that's a judgment call. What data did we have when we were talking about COVID, right? At the beginning of COVID, how people should work as a CEO, what data did they have? They had no data on that. They had no data on what a pandemic's going to look like. And by the way, frankly, if you asked us at the beginning of COVID, is everyone going to work from home and the stock market is going to skyrocket? 100% of us would have said there's no way that's going to happen. But what happened? That's exactly what ended up happening. And so I think there's a human element to things which I don't think gets completely taken away by machines. And AI will keep getting better and better and better, which means that humans will keep getting the opportunity to do things that require more and more judgment over time. And there's plenty of room for both to augment. Now, by the way, one thing that you'll note is the way that we are using AI is in an augmented fashion, where there are times that you'll use AI and then augment with human judgment. So if you call a contact center from Cisco with any of the customers, you might initially have a bot that's just going out and asking you questions and giving you answers through AI. And then at some point in time, let me give you an example. I'm calling a bank and saying, what's my bank balance? That's a pretty basic question that I'm keeping on getting asked. I put in my account number, I can get my bank balance. That's something that a bot can do. Oh, now I want to increase my credit limit on my account. based on the income that I have, can I talk to someone? At that point in time, the AI will transfer you to an agent. And so just know that those are aspects that will continue to keep getting fused together over time. AI and human will get more and more augmented. I don't think we're anywhere close to product managers' jobs getting obliterated because AI is going to take care of everything. I think we're a long ways away from that. At least in my lifetime, that's not going to happen.
It's been an absolute pleasure to learn from you, Jitu. Is there anything else you would like to add?
Look, I'd say thank you to you for all the good work that you're doing. Thank you to the folks that are thinking about getting into product management. I'd say there's a couple of things I'd like to add. One is it's extremely important that we have more women in the field of product management. And I think it's extremely important for the men to understand that they will build better products if they have more women. And that when you have a balanced team of 50-50, you will actually build better products because you will be more representative of the consumer that's actually someone you're building the product for. So build in a diverse way and make sure that you're giving opportunities across the board. Let's not make product management a male-dominated vocation. Let's make this be one which is open to all different types of people that are coming in. That would be one thing I would say. And the second thing I'd say is the reason there's not enough women in product management is not because of the lack of interest from women. It's because sometimes men don't create an environment that's welcoming and comfortable for women. So if you're a real man, hire women in your team, because you need to make sure that you're better when there's a mixed mode of building products. And I think it's extremely important that in engineering, in product management and design, in any field, we have more women in the team. So I'm a big fan for Women for Tech. So if there's one message to take away, it would be, let's have more women in product management, because I think we'll just build better products. Because here's the problem. I think there's so many shitty products in the market today. We need to build great products because the world gets better when great products are built. And that gets built when you actually are a representative of the crowd for whom you're building the products. And so we need to have a crowd which is very diverse that represents the crowd for whom you're building products. That would be my thought to you.
Completely agree with you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Product Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean the world to us if you would rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. Taking the time to write just a few sentences about what you love most about the show will help us improve it and reach even more product people around the world. And when you're done, why not reward yourself with some free product management content and resources over at productschool.com. Until next time, stay product-led.